This is Tabletop Babble, and I'm Amber. Hello! Today on the show, I chatted with TTRPG streamer, co-founder and events organizer of Friends Who Roll Dice, and the stream manager of One More Multiverse, Drak. We sat down on May 21st and talked about his love of role-playing games, representation in actual play streams, coming out of our shells, loving the audience interaction of streaming TTRPGs, and also playing as villains. Surprise, surprise, a little bit about superheroes because I'm hyper-focused on Marvel right now. We also talked about getting into streaming TTRPGs and how much he's grown in the space over the last year. So many games, so many shows. We also touched on what it means to be a stream manager, and he gave some tips and advice on streaming. Drak's passion and enthusiasm for games is infectious, and it was an absolute delight getting to chat with him. Hi Drak, and welcome to Tabletop Babble. For my listeners, would you please introduce yourself, your pronouns, and what you've been doing in the TTRPG space?
Okay, I'm Drakoniques, or Drak for short. I use he, him pronouns. You can find me on Twitter at Drakoniques, that's Drakoniques, and I just play a lot of TTRPGs. I'm in a bunch of different shows. I'm on one on the D&D channel, playing a Candlekeep Mysteries series. I'm over on Rule of Law in a Cypher System campaign, and currently in a Clockwork Dominion campaign. I'm over on Table Story on Saturdays. So I'm all over the place. I'm also the co-founder and the event organizer of Friends Who Roll Dice, which is a little TTRPG Twitch channel that I made with a group of friends of mine, and I am the person behind the scenes pulling all the strings for like charity events and stuff like that.
I am so excited to have you on because I've started to notice you pop up literally everywhere on my Twitter, and one of the things I really like to ask people when I first getting to know them is like, okay, you're doing TTRPGs, you're doing it streaming now, but is there a time before the stream, before internet, that, like, how did you get started playing RPGs?
Ooh, so, I've told this quite a lot of times, but I've been streaming TTRPGs for just over a year now, maybe like a couple of months, probably. I've been playing TTRPGs in general for maybe a year and a half.
Oh, so so most of it's been streaming then?
Yes, yeah. I joined. I'd always been a big fan of TTRPGs. I'd watched a lot of actual plays on Twitch and YouTube. So my start with TTRPGs is comes in two-folds kind of. Me learning what it is at all was back a couple of years ago. I had gone through a thing where I couldn't really sleep without noise going on, something playing in the background. So I'd often have a YouTube channel that's playing something random, and I fell asleep and then woke up in the middle of an actual play, just in the middle of an actual play, and I was like, okay, this is weird, but this is kind of cool. I'm kind of into this. It was Ivan Van Norman's Foreververse on Geek and Sundry, so quite a bit ago, back when Geek and Sundry was all about TTRPGs. It's not so much now, but and after that, I was like, okay, this is great. I really enjoy watching and listening to these. So after that, I started just diving into any TTRPG actual plays that I could find on YouTube. So I went from Foreververse to Eric Campbell's Callisto 6, and then fell in love with Eric Campbell's GMing style and just watched everything he was in. And then the second half of my TTRPG journey was when I actually decided to play, and that was after watching Hyper RPG's Coloc 1991. Hyper RPG is another TTRPG Twitch channel, and Coloc 1991 was a Kids on Bikes actual play, and it was incredible. The production was top tier. All the players were incredible. But I think what kind of opened my eyes to wanting more than just to watch TTRPGs was seeing a Bria Iyengar play. I was a very big fan, I still am a very big fan of Abria, but I think I realized when watching Abria play that all of the actual plays I'd been watching didn't have people of color in them. So the whole time I was like, oh, this is cool to watch, but I probably don't want to play it. I probably won't enjoy playing it. But seeing a black person specifically play, and also not just play, but be incredible at it, kind of opened my eyes and was like, oh, okay, wait, I don't want to just watch it. I kind of want to play it. This is a thing I could possibly do. So literally, couple of months later, in my university, I joined a D&D club, started playing with them, and then the pandemic hit. So
Oh no!
the pandemic hit like a couple of months afterwards. So I was kind of stuck. I couldn't play with anyone. Everyone was playing online, but everyone's internet was kind of dotty. Like everyone I was playing with didn't have a setup built for playing online. So internet connections would drop. After a while, the campaign just kind of died out. And then I just was kind of left without a game after just falling in love with it. So that's when I went into streaming. I started looking for people looking for players for their streams, and jumped into one. I think the first one I ever did was Otherdoc. It was on Otherdoc's channel. It was Medbay 3, and I played there. And I was very nervous. If anyone's seen that game, I feel like it's very obvious. I've watched it recently, and God, I was a nervous wreck. But it was a ton of fun. So after that, I played a bit and fell in love with streaming it as well, because it was very much it was a very different experience. I really enjoyed the interaction with chat, and I played with someone named Jen, and they were they were like kind of in the leadership of another channel. Honestly, I wish I could remember the name, but I can't for the life of me. But
That's okay. Names that are very hard to keep in your head sometimes.
Yeah. But yeah, they played with me, and then apparently loved playing with me. So we're like, hey, do you want to join our channel? I really love playing with you. I want to play with you more. So I was like, absolutely, yeah, let's do it. And then that's kind of where the journey began, where I just started playing as many games as I could possibly do.
I there's a couple of things I want to touch on in there, because for my listeners, it's like, truly, unless you are a person of color, you don't really realize how like not inviting the space is from the outside. Because like for me, you know, I'm mixed. I've been around, all of my gaming friends have always been primarily white, and I like literally didn't know that other people like me or other people of color actually existed in this space until I got online and like started to see stuff like Rivals of Waterdeep and, like you said, Abria on, you know, stuff, and it's like, oh shoot, I can do that, I guess. Which is so funny why we think, but because it's just so dominated, you know. Yeah. So I'm so shout out to Abria, for giving Drak oh, I could do this. It's very important. Now thinking about your like game stuff and streaming stuff, did you literally start just streaming TTRPGs? Like streaming in general was through RPGs?
No. So I've always wanted to stream, but my experience with streaming was mainly video gaming. So if anyone actually checks my Twitch channel, my personal Twitch channel, the last thing I streamed there was, I think it was Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man game on PS4. Because I loved a lot of gamers. I loved Markiplier, I loved Jacksepticeye, and I loved just the idea of streaming games and interacting with the audience like that. So that was my first attempt at streaming. But with everything that I was juggling, I couldn't keep it consistent. And I'm also a student, so I don't have the money to buy the newest games, which will draw the crowds. So like I was usually stuck with retro games, which were fun to play, but like what I enjoyed about streaming was the interactions, and because those games weren't exactly big, I wasn't getting many people in my streams to interact with. So it kind of like ended up simmering and dying down that little journey of streaming. So that I went quiet on Twitch for like a year. I was a very avid watcher, but not much of a streamer for like a year after that, and then TTRPG came into my life, and
and now it's like you're on what? How many shows did you say? 4, 5, 7?
I think it's four, going to be 5 soon. There's one in the works.
Yeah. So you talk about the interaction from streaming on and doing TTRPGs live. So I have had very little experience with a large or like more than 10 people in my live actual play stream. Would you mind like what is it about it? Like what happens? What is that interaction when you're streaming TTRPGs?
Mainly because of the type of player I am. At least at the beginning, I think I'm a bit better at it now. At the beginning, I loved it, but I was also nervous. So I was so nervous, I didn't want to try playing a serious character and failing. So I always leaned into the comic relief. Because I was like, okay, I'm the funny person. If I mess up, I can just be like, no, did it on purpose, just trying to be funny, kind of thing. And having some people like jump onto that, and like I see people in chat like making jokes and memes and like loving the kind of accidental, purposeful jokes that I'm making kind of bolstered me. I'm not much. Apparently, the minority in this, but I have literally no background in theatre. I am a STEM student, 100%. Like, I'm currently studying computer science. Previously, before that, I was studying physics in university. I took every kind of maths and science in school. So I've always been the kind of quiet one. Never really was comfortable going out into the in public acting. But for some reason, teacher RPGs were different, and having people jump onto my characters and enjoy the comic relief kind of and bolster my self-esteem, and I just enjoy that feeling.
Yeah, it is a very good feeling, because I also have no theater background. Like, when I was in kindergarten, I had to be a flower and just stand on stage, and I was like, nope, I'm sick tonight, I'm not gonna stand here. But I think, like, I mean, just talking with you right now, like, there's something about you, Drak, that is just very, like, warm and good, and, like, I don't know if the listeners can see it, but you're smiling this whole time, and that's just a good feeling, you know? I think people probably see that, and if you're just a good-humored person, like, that's good. That's good for streaming and good for RPGs, especially for RPGs. I wish, like you said, that feeling of failure, like when you first start playing an RPG. I don't know about you. I'll talk a little bit about my experience, but I would like to know yours too. Like, you know, learning something new, doing it in front of an audience. There's rules and a system, and there's other people, and you're trying to tell a story together. You don't want to be the one that, like, quote unquote F's it up.
Yeah.
Similar kind of feeling that you've had?
Absolutely. Yes. There were so many times where I would definitely be the quiet ones, but like, I don't know how to add to this. Like, I want to, but if I do, I might mess up. So I'm just going to sit back and watch instead. But I have gradually been able to grow out of that. And like I mentioned, the audience, like, clinging on to the little decisions I make and be like, no, that was great, I love that. Help me be like, okay, cool, I actually know what I'm doing. I'm going to try and be more... aggressive is not the word for it. More proactive about it. I'm going to try and interact with people and start these scenes with people. I feel like it's made me grow as a person in general, because I was definitely the same. I didn't get asked to play the flower. I'm a very large person. I'm 6'1". I've been like 5'11" upwards for like since I was like maybe 15, 16. So I was always the tall one. So whenever I wanted to have to play something, it was always in the center, just like right there.
Oh no!
Always. So it was very terrifying for me. And not only did I stream because I just enjoyed it, but it was also because my sisters. I'm the only son. I have 3 sisters, and they're all very, very good at being public. You know, being public facing. One of my sisters is like a head girl, which is like I guess essentially the student council president. Mm-hmm. And speaks in front of people, and I could never do that. And I wanted, out being the oldest, our group of sisters who were doing things that I couldn't do, a little bit of competitive side in me was like, I want to be able to do this. So it was a mixture of enjoying streaming and also just being like exposure therapy. Just gonna push myself out there and just get used to it. And I think it's worked.
I'm laughing because it sounds like me, because I was like, so I had played RPGs for a very long time. So probably, I've been playing for like 12 years now, 13 years. But I had never GM'd. And I was like, this is scary, right? GMing is another level, right? Like, it can feel scary. And so what I did was I made it, the first time I ever GM'd, I recorded it for a podcast.
Oh my God.
And then I made a whole show, which is my show, Shapeshift, where I basically did all of my GMing. And so I think exposure therapy, it works for some people, right?
Yeah, it's definitely
yeah. And I think it's like that competitive side you said, like, I want to see if I can do this. I think I have the same kind of like, I want to see if I can do this.
Yeah.
So as you're getting more comfortable, you know, role playing and coming out of your shell and getting used to it, even with streaming, what is it other than the audience that you love about TTRPGs?
It's honestly the storytelling, which is, I feel like, is a very cliche answer, but it's very true, because I've always enjoyed storytelling in some capacity. For a very long time when I was younger, I just write stories just for the fun of it. Just whatever came to mind, I start typing it out on the computer. My dad had a work computer at home, and I was probably on it more than he was with how much I'd be writing. But then I had a thing where, and it might be an ADHD thing, honestly, I'm trying to write novels, but I get bored very quickly and then immediately want to go to a new idea that I had. And I didn't get that like instant gratification, I guess, from the writing stories. So I kind of ended up dropping out of that. So I feel like RPGs has kind of given me that opportunity to get the instant gratification for telling stories and and still tell long and coherent stories with that.
I don't think it's cliche. I mean, it's a huge part of the RPG stuff. Some people like the storytelling, some people like the crunch, some people like mechanics. It's all over but yeah, I love storytelling too. So what kind of stories do you like to tell in RPGs?
I've recently learned that I'm a big fan of playing villains.
Really?
Yeah.
I have a hard time being villainous. Wow.
Really enjoy it. So I've only ever played a villain. I played a villain once. I'm actually in a campaign. It's on hiatus right now, but it's an all villain cast. So just a bunch of villains, and it's called Parliament of Owls over on Key Times. Because they have another heroes. It's two halves. We literally playing the villain half of the whole story. They have another stream. They have another campaign called Court of Corvids, which is the hero side, and we're playing the villain side counterpart. It's really, really fun, and I think it's because I'm a big superhero fan in general, and there's a lot of as a fan, I'm able to criticize it a lot, and most of the criticism comes to the villains and how ridiculous their ideas or plans are. So I'm just like, I'm siding with Captain America here, but this is how you could have done this better, Zemo, or this is how you could have done it better, Red Skull. Okay, yeah. So being able to play that out is a lot of fun. See, I think that's my favorite story at the moment. I get hyperfixations for sure. Mm-hmm. My most recent one before playing a villain was playing specifically superheroes and the superhero genre. Mm-hmm. Like I mentioned, I'm a huge fan of superheroes, and I've been kind of fixated on that for a bit, and then had a taste of, I think it was a Monster Hearts campaign, honestly. I played in the Monster Hearts campaign, and I was just an awful person. I was like, wow, this is actually kind of fun. I actually kind of enjoy this.
I think there's a complexity there, because that's the same thing with like in D&D, where it's like you have these alignments that make you fit into these categories that are too, cut and dry. I think when you start getting into like moral gray, leaning villain side, there's like some depth and complexity you get to play with there. So you're getting into you love superheroes. I just recently, and by recently I mean this past winter, watched all of the MCU for the first time.
Wait, for the first time? Whoa! First of all in a go. That's insane.
Well, it was like, because usually I watch something over like Christmas time, because winter is sad and I need something to like comforting, right? For me, it is a sad time. And I was like, well, I've already watched Lord of the Rings too many times, and I've already watched Star Wars way too many times. Let's try something, branch out. And I was like, all right, let's do Marvel. I love it so much. Oh my gosh, who's your favorite Marvel character or like story or whatever?
Okay, so if we're going MCU.
Yeah.
MCU specific, my favorite is probably obviously Black Panther holds a dear place in my heart. Mm-hmm. But before Black Panther, it was Iron Man. Because like I said, I'm very much a STEM student. So the idea of someone building their power, like just putting it together, just a normal person with a normal person. He's a billionaire, but a normal person.
Quotes.
A normal person putting together just machines and bits of metal together to. You watched it in Infinity War, stand up against a literal titan, just blew my mind. So I immediately fell in love with his character. I loved how, like, I think, now that I think about it, it's probably like reflects on how much I love villains, but like, I love how much of an awful person he kind of was. And then he became better. I really enjoyed that growth.
And I like it too, because it was a very complex reason why he was, quote unquote, like a gross kind of morally ambiguous, kind of leaning to, an asshole. I'll keep that in. He was an asshole. Tony was.
It really was.
But you could see, I think the storytelling I like of that is, and Iron Man is like my favorite character to talk about. My favorite character is Spider-Man. But I think that complexity of Iron Man, also, sorry listeners, this is now a Marvel.
I'm honestly, trust me, you got the right person for this because I love Marvel. I will talk for hours about this as well.
Yeah. So I love it because he's so, like, he obviously has trauma and baggage, and like it comes out in a way that is understandable and kind of relatable. And that's why I like Iron Man.
Sometimes, winning a game isn't about dealing the most damage, or drawing the most cards, or making any measurable contribution towards victory. But hey, just because you don't have the stats doesn't mean you're not a f***ing gamer god, alright? Enter The Intangibles, a podcast on the Geekspective Network, where me, Kenny, and my brother Matt break down all the things that are hard to quantify in games. All kinds of games. We're talking classics like Sonic's the Hedgehogs, and chess, and 3D Pinball Space Cadet. Great game, by the way. We're talking new releases like
insert latest trending games on Twitch here.
Single player, co-op, competitive, card games, board games, role-playing games, play-by-mail games, the Wakes. We do deep dives into our favorite games, digging into the intangibles that make them great and the intangibles that will make you a better player, and hey, maybe even a better person. Check out the intangibles on whatever the heck platform you're listening to right now.
Going back to TRPGs.
Yes.
Have you played any superhero specific RPGs yet?
I mean, it kind of. So I'm in a Mask campaign.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I played Mask. I played a lot of Mask. I played a few off stream with a bunch of friends, but after a while, as streaming kind of became more and more of my life, and at this point, also became like where I get my pay. Is I haven't had as much time for like just the bountiful amount of off stream games I usually play. But I play a lot of Masks. I'm currently in a Mask campaign called Super Idols RPG, and it's kind of superhero-ish. Mask, which is a superhero system, we're using that, but it's more Sailor Moon plus pop idols put together.
Okay.
So instead of like just straight up fighting people, we're having like concerts and having like concert battles against other bands. So it's kind of, I guess, kind of superheroes because like we have powers, but they're all more like music related.
I don't know what your true exposure is to what all is out there in TTRPG space. Are you kind of like, well, I'm going to take it back. I think I've seen you say on Twitter, I want to play everything, or like something like that.
Definitely have. Yeah.
Is there stuff that you're eyeballing that you're like, oh, I can't wait to play this right now?
Outside of the superhero genre, yes. I'm really interested in playing in I feel like everyone knows about this, Into the Motherlands, the setting that came out. I backed that immediately. And I'm very excited to play in that setting. I think that's the one that's like on the top of my list. As far as superheroes go, I backed Cypher System Superhero. I can't remember what it's called. I can't remember the exact title, but the Cypher System Monte Games put out a setting and rule book for a superhero genre kind of game on Kickstarter a couple of months ago. Honestly, it might have been a year ago, honestly, at this point. I don't know. Time is an illusion.
Time is an illusion. It is truth.
But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I backed that immediately. So I think in the superhero genre, that's what I'm most excited about, because I'm going to jump right into that.
At the beginning, when you were introducing yourself, you were saying that you also do stuff kind of behind the scenes.
Yes.
So you are the founder of Friends Roll Dice?
Friends Who Roll Dice.
Friends Who Roll Dice, yes.
Twitter didn't let us have who, so we just took that out in the Twitter handle.
I see.
On Twitch with Friends Who Roll Dice, yeah.
Tell me about that. There's no question. Just talk about it.
So I'll go back to, it's kind of part of my origin story, I guess.
Yeah.
But so I played it with Jen on Other Doc's channel, and Jen was like, hey, do you want to join our channel? Again, I wish I could remember the name. I need to look that up. But I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So I joined the channel. I played with a few one-shots. It was never a campaign thing, but a few one-shots with them. And then met a few friends there. I met Cole there. I met Ray there. I met Jen there. Adam as well, and a bunch of others. I met I can't, because a lot of them have kind of went on their separate ways, and I don't know if they're okay with me putting them out on blast. But I met a few other people through that, and later on, so I was always a player in that channel. I was never like in the leadership, but Jen was, and there was some drama that happened. Definitely don't want to go into it, but there was some drama that happened, and they left, and in solidarity, we left as well, because it was definitely, they were in the right, the channel was not, and we were like, you know what? We're pretty awesome. We can probably do this ourselves, right? And it was like, yeah, let's do it. So we just made our own channel, and it was Friends Who Roll Dice. And again, I was mainly a player at the beginning, so I was just like, yeah, I'll come along. I'll be one of your fellow players. I just started, so I probably don't have much to add in terms of leadership. So I wasn't really involved in the initial creation, like co-founding and everything like that. But then I think I heard a lot of stories about how it happened. So, for example, the name Friends Roll Dice, they spent like maybe a week or two trying to figure out a name for it, and they couldn't decide. And it got to a point where like they're all great friends, they love each other, but they were at each other's throats.
Names.
We need a name. And then, as a joke, and also just because that's who they are, Cole was like, "How about Friends Who Roll Dice and Cry?" And then everyone was like, "Wait a second. Let's take out the cry part." Friends Who Roll Dice. That's genius. So he went with that. And then once that happened, once they thought of a name, they realized that they just needed more people helping out behind the scenes. So like, "Hey, Drak, do you wanna help out?" I was like, "Absolutely, cool, I'll do it. I've only been playing TTRPGs for like 3 months, but I'll jump in."
I'll do it, no problem.
And then that's kind of like how it was born. It got to a point where both I and the channel got so big that it got a bit hard for us always to be doing everything. So we started dividing up the roles, and I was like, I'm really passionate about charity events. I really enjoy organizing them, so I want to be the event organizer. I want to sort that kind of stuff out.
Yeah, I'm really interested in that, because I would like to eventually one day start doing stuff with like charity and event organization, and it's just a topic or like an area that I just don't know like where to even start. So could you dump your brain into my brain, please?
I could try. Yeah. Because the thing is, I think one of the biggest things with at least the way I went about it was, first initially when we were running Friends Roll Dice, before I became like the designated event organizer, one of the big things we wanted to do was make connections with other channels. And one of the ways to do that was obviously on Twitch, doing raids, shout out, stuff like that, but also playing on their streams and being like a player or GM on their streams. So I kind of like you probably know, I dived headfirst into that. I played on every single channel I possibly could, and ended up making connections in that way. And then when we eventually were like, hey, we probably should do some charity events. I think it was a Black Lives Matter movement when that really hit its stride last year. I personally, and also Adam, were like, we really should do something for this. We need to do some kind of charity event. And with the connections that we'd made, and I'm going to specifically I'd made it because I was like, everyone else was like, I'm going to responsibly play games. I was like, I'm going to play so many games that I'm sleeping max 4 hours a day.
Oh no! You went hard!
Yeah, it was also a way for me to just like kind of cope with the pandemic.
Sure. I mean, that makes sense. Like, I get that. Like, keep your time occupied.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So with all the connections I made, I found it not easier, but just like, I'm a very anxious person. Not so much anymore, I feel like I'm getting through that. But especially back then, I was very anxious about just reaching out to people and being like, hey, do you want to play? But it's a lot easier to do that when I've played with them already and kind of have that rapport. So I reached out to a bunch of people. I actually reached out to Abria, which was probably the most terrifying experience of my life, because I played with Abria once before then in another charity stream, and I was like, okay, I played with her. She was awesome. She was cool. She didn't seem to hate me, so I can reach out to her, right? So I DM'd her, and I was like, hey, I played with you last time. It was absolutely awesome. Would you like to play in this charity event? And she was like, yeah, absolutely. So she played in it. And we had a bunch of other, like, especially thinking back on it, considerably big guests for the side of the channel we were at the time, and ended up just raising money. It was a ton of fun. Like, Discord is probably your best friend when it comes to organizing charity events. I have so many servers, but whenever I'm making charity events, I have upwards to like 5 or 6 active group chats of different groups that are going to be playing. And also just not being afraid of asking. I slipped into the event organization role because out of everyone, I was the least anxious. So I ended up being like, okay, I will take this on and just send out requests. And the worst thing that can happen is a no. The best thing that can happen is a yes. And kind of keeping that in mind really helped with my anxiety. Same with sponsorships. People, surprisingly, reaching out, a lot of companies are eager to give products for giveaways and charity streams. Maybe not so much for just general streams in general. That's fair. But like for charity streams, they are more than happy to just be like, here are some codes to dice. I think a first stream we did, we reached out to Heartbeat Dice. And we're like, we're going to be doing, because we coupled Black Lives Matter and Pride, the charity project, and raised money for both charities. So we're like, Heartbeat Dice, they sell a bunch of gay dice. That's perfect for this, right? So we're like, hey, would you be down to give us some dice to give away? And they were really cool about it. They said, yeah, gave us some codes to give to winners, and ended up building really sweet community. So I think like the main thing, I rambled. I'm very sorry about that. I do that sometimes.
I followed it entirely.
Okay.
I got it. You're good.
But yeah, the main thing I feel like is making connections, and also just remembering the worst that can happen is a no. No one's gonna call you out for asking them to be in a charity stream, you know. So just shoot your shot.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that I'm speculating here. I think, you know, RPGs for the most part in the past probably appealed to a lot of introverted people, right? I feel like there's a lot of introverted people in the space, but it also attracts the extroverts to the people who are good with that. But I know that my experience with people has always been a fear of, oh, I'm going to be annoying.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to irritate them somehow. But you're like, if you're doing it for charity, it's like, well, they can just say no.
Yeah, they can just say no. It's a lot easier.
So what was probably some of like your challenges doing the event stuff?
I think the initial was, like I mentioned, just reaching out in the first place. I had just joined. I was barely in any streams I was in a bunch of charity streams, but I was barely in any like long going campaigns or any like noteworthy streams. So reaching out, it was always like, who is this guy daring me to be on this channel that was made 3 months ago? Kind of, I always had that in the back of my mind, like, oh, they might just ignore me, they might just think I'm weird. But I managed to push through that. I think the one that is a constant thing that I have to deal with is, even though I'm over my anxiety, I'm still very much an introvert. I love being in front of people, I love being on stream, I love interacting with people, but I definitely, my social batteries, I feel like considerably smaller than most people's. So reaching out to people and organizing these events, like making these group chats, tires me out a lot. And I have to remember to be like, yes, this is good, I'm doing this for charity, but also you need to be okay. You need to be mentally healthy to carry this on. So take as many breaks as you can. Don't reply to Discord messages until you're ready to. And also a big thing was writing out what I want to ask people. So like writing out DMs in my notes and then saving it for the next day when I have the energy to send it.
You know, it's so funny you said this. I today had 2 back-to-back interviews. And so I'm like, okay, after this interview with you, Drak, even though I'm enjoying it and obviously having a great time, I'm going to turn off and just go lay down on the couch and just chill for the rest of the weekend. But I like that too. Like, I have a template for like asking people to come on to Tabletop Babble, and I'm always like terrified that I'm going to like leave it with XXX.
Yes.
Copy and paste. Yes. Hello, XXXX. Would you like to come on?
It's so embarrassing because, like, I think the biggest fear is that they think you're ingenuine.
Yes.
When you like, that's not it at all. Like, you really want them to be welcome. You really want them to come on. It's just like it takes a lot of mental energy to write whole new messages to people.
I wish I was trying to explain this to Josh. Hello, Josh, co-owner of Geekspective. Who doesn't have the battery draining experience that I do. I was telling him, oh man, like the hardest part of Tabletop Babble for me is literally scheduling.
Oh god,
just
yes.
sending out messages, getting people in, making sure people feel good about what they're coming into. It's all very exhausting because I love the actual talking part.
Yeah.
But the beforehand is definitely draining. One introvert to the other, what's your favorite way to like recharge?
I am a big anime fan, so I sometimes just switch off and just watch anime. And just like any show, honestly, I'm a big fan of just shows in general. I love fantasy, I love like over the top stuff, but anime especially is like I love it a lot. And so I would just switch off and hopefully have like a really fun anime that I don't need to concentrate on. Because there are definitely some animes where I have to be like, I need to focus. There are clues here that I don't want to decipher these clues, but there are some that are just muscular people punching each other, and that's fine with me. that's fine with me, and that works. So like I watch those kind of stuff and just kind of turn up and recharge. And I think honestly the same, just lying down and just doing nothing, like no human interaction for as long as possible, and that is like amazing to me.
It's so funny because it's like I think people have this perception of introverts who like just don't like people, and
it's not the case. No,
it's no. I love people. I can only bite
small amounts
at a time, which is why it's like so impressive to me that you like went so hard with the, like the back to back. But if you're using it as a coping method for other stuff, I get you. So there's other stuff that you so you have friends who roll dice, but there's also One More Multiverse is another thing that you do. Yes.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
That's actually very, very recent.
Oh.
I've gotten into TTRPGs to the extent, which is very weird, it's only been just over a year, but I've gone into it so much that I kind of want to just have a career in it. Being a player and being big enough to like just sustain myself of being a player, very unlikely. I would love to, but it's very unlikely. So I kind of just looked around for like a job that was TTRPG adjacent at the very least. At this point, I'd already written some modules. I've given a go writing modules for some systems on Kickstarter. And...
This is news to me.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
okay,
so I can dive into that later. But yeah, I really tried my hand in being more than just a player. And then I saw a friend of mine actually retweeted it and quote tweeted it. His name is Nunu. Absolutely love him so much. He's a sweetheart. And he quote tweeted One More Multiverse's tweet about looking for a community manager, social media and community manager. And with one, my limited knowledge of what even that is, and two, with the experience I've at least had with Friends Roll Dice, I assumed that like I could do this. I kind of do this for free because like Friends Roll Dice at this point isn't really making money. So I do this for free as a passion project. I would like to do this for pay. So I applied, gave all of the stuff I've done, all of my credentials, I guess, all the things I've done the past year. And apparently it was surprising. Apparently I've done a lot that in a year that they were like, please, yes, please. How did you do this in a year? How? And I just said, I am an addict, and everyone enabled me. But so I kind of dived into that. So One More Multiverse is kind of the whole thing that they want to do is make TTRPGs more accessible and intuitive, and also just more visually appealing to stream. So what they do is it's kind of like a mixture of a pixel game plus a virtual tabletop. So basically like Roll20, but instead of little circle tokens, you have like a full-on sprite. So you have a full-on pixel 8-bit sprite that you can customize, walking around an 8-bit pixel world. And they want to make that a new thing. And they needed someone to manage the community and do social media stuff. And just be an expert at streaming, because a lot of them, their words, I promise you, they said they're a bunch of boomers and they don't know anything about Twitch or streaming. So they needed a fresh face who was knew a lot about streaming to help them out with that. So I kind of applied and was like, here's all the stuff I've done. Can I add you to the list?
Yeah, I'm excited because I think I've seen One More Multiverse because it looks really, really cool to make like you said, more accessible, because Roll20 is great once you know it how to use it, but the onboarding process is a little bit like And so my background is in user experience and layout and graphic design and stuff. And some of my challenges I've had, also ADHD, I have ADHD as well. And some of my challenges is being able to, even with just games, like get into it to play it, right? Yeah. So that's awesome. So as a community manager, like what have you been doing for them so far? Like when did this happen?
I said I have been over my anxiety, but I still have a little bit of it. So technically, it's been like maybe 2 months, 2 or 3 months, where I was at least confirmed that they're like, we like you, we want you on the team. But for the month or two, they didn't really have anywhere to put me. So in my head, I was like, oh, okay, they just said it. They don't actually want me on the team. So I never like fully officially announced it. But then recently, they've been doing the onboarding process for me. And I'm going to be signing off as specifically a stream manager. Because they're trying to get, because they get in the game, it's essentially a game. They get in the game, like, good enough to be put on stream instead of just showing, like, because right now I think on Twitch they just do, like, the art streams where you see them doing the pixel art for the assets and all of that. You don't see them actually using the platform. But they're going to be doing that soon. And I'm actually going to be on the actual play as well. But they needed...
Of course.
So they needed someone with some, like, stream expertise to do that. So... once they had me officially on, which was maybe like 3 weeks ago, that's when I've been actively being like, okay, this is when we should probably stream. These are the times that are best on Twitch. Here are the figures, stuff like that. Because my time on Friends Roll Dice, I kind of slipped into that role as well. I just kind of knew when I figured out when was best to stream. Like, I'm in the UK. So, so a lot of the streams, the peak times for Twitch are when a normal person in the UK should be sleeping. But, right. But I'm not normal, so I know very well when the best times are to stream and stuff like that, and I've been kind of like the advisor at this point for when to stream, and soon I'm probably going to be like the person like putting strings again to get guests on as well, because we really want to be doing that to bolster the name of One More Multiverse, because we want to get people out seeing that, because I will be honest, and I've told my boss. I joined specifically because I needed money. I just needed the money. But then when I learned about One More Multiverse, I was like, wait, this is actually really cool. Like, I actually genuinely believe in this and want this to be a thing.
Cherry on top.
Yeah, great cherry on top. Yeah, so being able to help put that out there is honestly really, really cool and really, really fun, because I played so many different systems at this point that I know getting into it is very hard. Like, getting into D&D is really easy, and I love D&D, but there are so many things wrong with it. But it's so easy because it's so mainstream, and also there's so many different platforms that makes character building or GMing so much easier. And D&D Beyond makes character building the most easiest thing ever. But if you gave me a cipher book, I don't know what to do. Like, right. I go through I'm the person who goes painstakingly reads through every page of a book. I love it. I love character creation. I do it for fun. Like, I have so many characters that I probably will never use in a campaign, but I just do it for meditational reasons. But there are many people who can't and don't do that, and it makes it so hard for them to get into TTRPGs. And the fact that even I have some kind of like, even that I find it difficult to get into some, means it must be infinitely hard for others. So having that make it easier is a thing I'm just passionate about. It's
true. It's one of those, I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant right now.
Please.
I hate making characters. Like, I'm the kind of person that if you just hand me a pre-gen, I'll make it work for me because I like it. But I spend so much of my time in my day writing lists and managing that the idea of spending 2 hours to sit down to go through a list, hunt and find, do some math makes it very hard for me. And when people design games, I think sometimes, and this is just me being me and my perspective and my experience trying to make characters in my brain, where it's not the character creation section or even just the layout of the book isn't really structured well or written in a way that is accessible and highly usable for somebody who, like me, or even has like dyslexia, even like to get into making it, and then therefore your game doesn't get played.
Exactly.
So I'm all for One More Multiverse. That sounds amazing. Like, looks cute. I'm looking at it right now. Like the art. And I'm excited that you're working for them. That's awesome. And doing stuff. So as a stream manager, outside of like maybe, making sure people are organized, is there like technical aspects? Are you actually doing production, or are you more just managing people?
Yeah, right now I'm just managing. I want to do production, but I'm honestly saving up for a better PC, just so I can handle it a bit more. My PC is, I think it's like maybe 6 or 7 years old, which for most people isn't old, but for a computer, for a PC, for streaming, that is very old. So it can just barely handle streams, and I definitely don't want to risk accidentally sabotaging our first campaign, for example, with my computer deciding to shut down. But eventually, I'm hoping to save up enough for a new PC, and then I will be helping out with production. We already have someone who's going to be doing like specifically the streaming part of it. But I'm more in charge of getting people organized, knowing what the norm is of TTRPGs on Twitch anyway, and picking and choosing what we want to take inspiration from. I'm essentially the TTRPG. I'm technically the Twitch researcher, I guess, is the term for it. Like, I'm the one that they go to be like, hey, how can we get this actually trending on Twitch, for example? How can we get this on front page, or how can we get a bunch of viewers in on this game or this campaign? So I'm the advisor in that.
Would you be willing to maybe share to a listener like any advice about that kind of stuff for Twitch? Like if they're starting to do a show themselves, like what would you advise them?
One, you would be very surprised. Twitter and just any kind of social media platform is huge. Use your tags, use the hashtag D&D, hashtag TTRPGs. It gets people who click on that hashtag to find your tweet about that stream, and hopefully leads them to your Twitch account. Also, the time of day you tweet is very important. Saturdays and Sundays, don't bother. Saturdays and Sundays are the worst times to tweet or do any social media posts. You get the least interactions. Weekdays are the best. I usually tweet anything like announcement, like charity stream announcements. I usually tweet them around 10 a.m. Eastern. That's usually the best time to do that, because whether you like it or not, America is a big majority of the Twitch world, and so you're gonna have to cater to them if you want to get a lot of traction. So yeah, that's around the time where most of America is awake, and they'll most likely be on Twitter or some kind of social media platform. I think each platform has their own peak times, but we're mainly on Twitter, so I can give you like times for that specifically. What else? Twitch. There's a very useful site called Twitch Strike, where you can type in the category. So if you're doing tabletop, if you're doing D&D, if you're doing video games, anything like that, you can type in the category, and it'll tell you the peak times for that category. Because naturally, different games, different things require different time period, amount of time to do. So they end up being, the peak times for that end up being at different times. So like video games, people, at least the people I know, play for like 8-9 hours. So naturally, the peak times are going to be different to TTRPG, which is usually max 3 hours. So I believe the peak time for TTRPGs in general is on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern. So that's when we kind of, at least on Friends Who Roll Dice, that's when we try and get all of our charity games specifically, because we want the most viewership for charity games. So we usually get it around there. So that's another tip. Another is raids. Just raid as many people as you can, and people that you actually enjoy the content of course. Don't raid big channels who, one, probably won't notice you, and two, you don't actually enjoy, just hoping that they'll raid you back, because the chances are they won't. Honestly, the best thing to do is to raid other small channels and make that community between you, because then that will gradually grow and it will be a benefit both of you. I think that's the main ones that kind of learn along the way.
Cool. Like Twitch is, oh boy. Yeah, there's a lot that goes on there, and so it's good to know these insights. So Drak, thank you for that advice, and I hope our listeners who are interested in twitching who are interested in Twitch streaming find it useful. And just talking with you, I'm so excited to see some of your content and check it out. But for my listeners who don't know where to find you, could you please let us know where they can do that?
You can find me on Twitter at Drakoniques. That's Drakoniques. I stream all over the place. So I always have my schedule pinned on my Twitter account. But right now I'm in like I mentioned before, I'm in a D&D kind of keep mysteries game on the D&D channel, which is honestly incredible. I didn't think that would be a thing I could ever do. I'm on Rule of Law in a Savage System campaign called Infinite Horizon, and I'm currently on Table Story in a mini-series, which I think is going to be like 6 episodes max. So we've got like 4 episodes left of a Clockwork Dominion campaign called Midsummer Mysteries. You can hear my voice in an actual play podcast called Super Outdoors RPG, and soon, by now it would be already out, I'm going to be over on Kobold Press in a game of Scarlet Citadel. That's it, Scarlet Citadel, where it's going to be a little mini-series from June 1st to July 6th, I believe. So that's going to be a ton of fun. I'm very excited for everyone to meet my character. And yes, everything. I'm also the co-founder and event organizer of Friends Who Roll Dice. Honestly, if you're an indie creator who wants their TTRPG played on stream, hit me up. I'll make it happen. I'll make some kind of excuse to have your game run on our channel. So please do hit us up. But that's Friends Roll Dice on Twitter or Friends Who Roll Dice on Twitch. And yeah, and also One More Multiverse, which is play_multiverse on Twitter. I'm not in charge of the account yet, but soon. Keep an eye out for that, because we're going to be putting out tweets for the actual players going to be coming up soon. I think that's everything, yeah.
Whew, take a deep breath. Breathe in. I'm so happy that you found TTRPGs and you're doing all this stuff, because honestly, Drak, there's just something so genuine and warm about you, and your enthusiasm is so infectious. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the show. You can find me on Twitter at RocketOrca, Kenny as at Wolfmere, and John is at CrosswaysGM. Tabletop Babble is part of the Geekspective Network. Go to geekspective.com to check out all our other shows, or follow us on Twitter at Geekspective. Our theme music was provided by the Battle Bards.